Hi, students. For this online lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can use proportions to convert different measurements from one unit to another. So on the screen here is a word problem example that's a pretty common real life example. Um, in this situation, we learned from the problem that Sam needs to give their dog a new medication. The package says to give one pill to dogs weighing less than 10 kilograms and two pills to dogs weighing 10 to 30 kilograms. Sam's dog weighs about 35 pounds. How much medicine should Sam give her? So, not an uncommon situation. A lot of medical measurements are done in the metric system. You may have noticed in the past you've gone to the doctor's office and seen the nurse convert your weight to kilograms when they're doing different things, or they convert your height to centimeters. Um, and so that's kind of what we want to take a look at here is how do we make that conversion? How do we change from one unit to the other? Um, so in order to do that, we need to know a little bit of information about the units that we're working with. And so, for example, in this case, we're talking about kilograms, which is what the information on the medication package is using. And then also about pounds, because that's what Sam knows about their dog, right? They know their weight in or in pounds. So these two units have a specific relationship. We can figure out or look up on a table what 1 kilogram would be in pounds or what 1 pound could be in kilograms. And you have some of this information. On Moodle, you have a formula sheet and conversion sheet. So it's one sheet and kind of both pieces of information on two sides. So geometry formula on one side, conversion measures on the other side. And what we have on our conversion sheets are a bunch of equivalencies. So in other words, it kind of shows us the relationship between different units of measurement. So we have one chart here that deals entirely with the system that we use in the United States, which is sometimes called the standard system or the customary system. Sometimes we call it the US system like they do here because we are one of the few places in the world that still use this system. In fact, there's only 3 countries in the entire world that don't use the metric system and still use this system, and we are one of them. So this shows us the relationship between different measurements of length, so inches and feet and yards and miles, different measures of weight, ounces and pounds and tons, lot of different volume measurements, which you're probably familiar with if you do a lot of cooking. And then also units of time, which we're not going to do a whole lot of work with at this point. Also here we have conversions between the US system measurements and metric system measurements. So again, kind of some of the relationships between various or commonly used length measurements. Centimeters and meters and kilometers are really common metric measurements that we'll see even here in the United States. We'll see those used in different things. Mass is kind of another word for weight. And so we might look at grams or kilograms as really common measures of mass. And then for capacity, that's another word for volume. And in fact, let's add that on here. And there's a couple of common capacity measures that we see in the metric system. Probably the liter would be the most commonly used one here in the US. So let's take a look at how we can use proportions to actually make some of these conversions. We're going to start with a different kilogram to pound conversion. So this is not the dog question, but here we have a different problem where we are given a quantity of 5.6 kilograms and we want to know how many pounds that is equal to. So the way that we're going to work this out is by setting up a proportion. So I'm going to draw a proportion down underneath here. Remember, a proportion is set up with 2 fractions equal to each other. And what I'm going to think about is that in this problem, there's 2 units that I'm working with. And those two units are kilograms and pounds. Okay, and I'm just going to think about kilograms being on the top of my fraction and pounds on the bottom, just because it's kind of the order that those units are given to me in the problem. It actually, I could switch these around and it really wouldn't make a difference at all. So I'm going to take this information that I'm given, 5.6 kilograms, and I'm going to put it in the upper left-hand corner of my proportion. Okay, and I don't know how many pounds that is. That's the thing I'm trying to find. I'm going to put a question mark down in that space below, kind of in the denominator below that 5.6 kilograms. Now, the key for setting up proportion problems is always just figuring out, once we set up one of our fractions, how do we set up the other one? And so what I want to think about is that I put kilograms in the top part of my fraction on the left. I want to put kilograms in the top part of the fraction on the right. So in other words, I want to have kilograms going all the way across the two fractions here. Now, how many kilograms am I going to put in there? What am I going to do? Well, this is where I'm going to go to my chart, and I'm going to look at the information that's given to me in the chart. And what do I know about these two units, kilograms and pounds? Well, I actually know two things. This chart is kind of interesting. It gives us two different ways of thinking about this. One thing it tells us is that 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. The second thing it tells us is that 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So I can do this either way. I'm just going to choose to go with the top one off the list just because it's the first thing on the list. So we'll use this one. We're going to fill in, again, putting kilograms right across from kilograms. I'm going to fill in 0.45 kilograms. And down below that, now this time I do know something about pounds, right? And on the left here, this is the thing we're looking for. But on the right, I know that 0.45 kilograms is the same thing as 1 pound. And so that's what I'm going to put in here. And we've done some other proportion examples. What you're going to see with these measurement conversions is that almost always one of the numbers in one of these four positions is going to be a 1, which is going to make our work a little bit easier. Okay, so now I have to solve for the missing piece. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cross multiply, just like we've looked at for other proportion examples. The two numbers that are diagonal from each other are 5.6 and 1, so that's what I'm multiplying. It's pretty easy to do because 5.6 times 1 is just 5.6. And then we know that we divide by the third number, so I'm going to divide by 0.45. Okay, so I'm going to grab a calculator to do that. I'm going to take 5.6 times 1, which is just 5.6, divided by 0.45. And if you do this on your calculator, it works out to be 12.4 repeating, actually. So I'll just put something like that. And we could round this off to just 12.4 pounds. But that's the answer that we're looking for. I would say that 5.6 kilograms is about the same thing as 12.4 pounds. That would be my answer for that one. Okay. So again, key idea, make sure that we're getting the units lined up with each other. And also, like, both things on the left here have to do with the measurement I was given. 5.6 kilograms and 12.4 pounds, that is the same thing. Those represent the same weight or mass. 0.45 kilograms and 1 pound, those are the exact same things. Let's do another example using length measurements. So this time we have 32 inches. Again, I'm going to set up a proportion here. I want to know how many centimeters is 32 inches. So again, we'll just start up in the upper left-hand corner here, and I'm going to enter in 32 inches. I don't know how many centimeters that is. I'm going to give myself a little box to fill in this time. And I'm going to go to the chart now and look in the length section and just see, what do I know about inches and centimeters? And right at the top of the list, I know that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So I'm going to fill in 1 inch right across from 32 inches and 2.54 centimeters right across from the number of centimeters that I'm looking for. And again, here I'm going to think about cross multiplying. This time the diagonal numbers are going to be the 32 and the 2.54. And I'm going to multiply those together and then divide by the third number, which in this case is just 1. So really this is just kind of a multiplication problem. So again, I grab my calculator. I'm going to figure out what 32 times 2.54 is. And that turns out to be 81.28. And my unit here is centimeters. So that would be how I do that conversion. Okay, let's do one last example here. This time we're converting 0.3 liters to quarts. So I'm going to set up 0.3 liters to quarts. I don't know how many that is. What I do know is that in my other fraction, I'm going to have liters on the top and quarts on the bottom. I'm going to go over to the capacity section. And again, here I've got two choices. I'm going to do the top one again. And I'm going to say that 1 quart is 0.95 liters. And then I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply 0.3 times 1 and divide that by 0.95. You can grab your calculator, work that out. Comes out to be about, another long decimal, 0.947. So this is going to be about oh, wait a minute. I made a mistake here. Hang on. Let's try this again. 0.3 times 1 divided by 0.95. The 0.3157, we're going to round that to 0.32. Put that in here. Okay, so you can use the conversion chart that you can find on Moodle to get this information, and remember to always just pay attention to how you are setting up your proportions, where you're putting the different units, and how you're lining things up. Remember your method for cross multiplying, and you should be good to go.